What did Roman recruits have to endure during training? You might think that you know the answer to this question already. You've probably seen the famous depictions of Roman recruits being whipped and beaten by their drill instructors until they bleed. But the reality was far more brutal than even those depictions show. And today we are going to talk about the brutal truth about what Roman recruits had to endure during their training. Viewer discretion is advised for this video, as some of this training would be considered extremely disturbing, and some of it even traumatizing. So if you are easily disturbed or offended, then leave now before I begin. When someone decided to join the Roman army, they were signing themselves up for a life of hardship. But nowhere was this more apparent than in the training camps where new recruits were sent after they enlisted. They were usually sent there right away, as in within 24 hours of enlisting, and were kept there for 6 months of rigorous training. There was an old saying that went, "The first year is the father of the soldier." This meant that everything a recruit learned during their first year of service in the army would stay with them throughout the rest of their career. It was during this time that soldiers learned how to be a part of a unit, how to fight as a cohesive group, and also how to obey orders without question. It was also during this time that many recruits were broken and sent home in disgrace. It all started when they got to the camp. Right when the recruits arrived at the training camp, they were stripped naked and given a physical exam by a centurion. During this exam, the centurion would look for any physical ailments or deformities that would make it impossible for the recruit to perform his duties in the army. If the recruit had flat feet, for example, he would be rejected immediately. However, there was also another reason that centurions would reject a recruit, and that was if the centurion didn't like him. During the days of the Roman Republic, becoming a Roman soldier was a matter of pride, and for the most part, only freeborn Romans would serve in the legions. This meant that a centurion could reject anyone for any reason they wanted to, because they knew that they would be able to get away with it. Once a recruit was accepted, he would be issued clothing, armor, and weapons, and then sent straight into drills. Recruits would march for hours, learn how to obey without hesitation, and be drilled endlessly in formation fighting. A Roman soldier wasn't trained to be an individual warrior. He was trained to be part of a machine. And this is where the brutality came in. If a recruit was slow to learn or made mistakes, punishment was immediate and public. Sometimes it meant extra drills, but often it meant whippings, vicious ones. The Romans had several methods: flogging with leather whips, heavy lashes with metal spikes, and even the dreaded cat-o'-nine-tails. But even that wasn't the worst. Executions were common in training camps. A mistake could cost you your life, whether by beheading, drowning, crucifixion, or even being burned alive. These executions weren't just punishments, they were lessons for the others. The message was clear: step out of line, and you're next. The Romans were so desensitized to violence that even horrifying punishments were treated as routine. Emperors like Caligula, Nero, and Commodus were said to enjoy watching such executions. Even under the philosopher king Marcus Aurelius, training became harsher. He lowered the age requirement so that boys of 16 were thrown into this nightmare. And this brings us to the tragic story of Gaius. Gaius was only 16 years old, a boy from Londinium whose father enlisted him when Marcus Aurelius lowered the age limit. From the moment he entered the camp, it was clear he didn't belong. The older recruits towered over him, mocking him with names like Little Gaius and Short Stack. They dumped their gear on him, made him run their errands, and laughed when he stumbled under the weight. Still, Gaius tried. He pushed through the endless marches, the blistering drills, and the harsh punishments, hoping that one day he'd earn their respect. But in the Roman army, weakness was never forgiven. The breaking point came during a training exercise. His squad was ordered to storm a mock enemy camp with real weapons, a rehearsal for battle. The camp echoed with steel clashing, men shouting, and dust rising. Gaius gripped his sword, trembling. Suddenly, an enemy recruit charged straight at him. Panic surged through his chest. His sword slipped from his hands, and before he could think, he turned and ran. It was the ultimate sin: cowardice. The centurion's fury was instant. Gaius was bound and locked inside a wooden box, left in darkness for 3 days without food or water, forced to sit in his own filth. By the time he was dragged out, he was barely alive, too weak to lift his head. But mercy never came. The centurion ordered the boy thrown into a fire pit in front of the others. His screams filled the camp, but no one moved. The recruits stood in silence, watching him burn, watching the lesson being carved into their minds. Fear had no place in the Roman army. That was the reality of Roman training, brutal, merciless, and designed to strip away individuality until only obedience and discipline remained. And while Gaius' story is horrifying, he was not the only one. Countless young men, many just teenagers, were broken, beaten, and even executed before they ever saw a real battlefield. That is the dark truth about what Roman recruits had to endure during training. The reality was much more brutal than even the legends say, and it's amazing that anyone could survive it. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends.